Okay, I'll try and keep this short for fear of being overexposed at this point. ICTs play a large role. I work in the area of information and communication management, and as Gopi mentioned, I'm a member of the FSN community, but I also have worked in the country on 2 large projects on using information and communication technologies to analyze and visualize food security and nutrition data for improved policy decision making. So I actually think that I can talk about 2 different areas where ICTs could play a role in this area. But obviously the first one, and I can't really add much to what's been said in terms of the role, is to facilitate communication and knowledge sharing. Maybe 20 years ago your job would have been much easier in convincing some of the agriculturalists if we had some of these technologies around in terms of bringing...
When people talk about two solutions, some of the people may not be knowing it. It's believable.
Okay. There are many ways to improve communication and improve awareness of issues amongst people. One of them is just to facilitate knowledge exchange amongst interested parties. And one of the things we do at FAO is to facilitate communities of practice. If you listened to me earlier, I talked about e-agriculture, which is a community of practice. Here in India, we have the Food and Security Network, which is one of, how many now? Solution Exchange? 13. One of 13 topical groups under the Solution Exchange banner. Solution Exchange is a model for communicating and networking people together, people who are not always geographically disposed to be able to communicate. So again, where we have the luxury of talking face-to-face today, tomorrow we will not. And Solution Exchange facilitates this sort of communication to continue on in a group that's interested in a specific topic. But it's particularly unique in its model in that it functions around not a common general discussion like many discussion boards do or many online groups, but Solution Exchange looks at specific questions, as I think we heard the doctor has a question up right now. They look at one question at a time, and it's facilitated by professionals who look at all the responses. They manage the responses and they summarize the responses, which is a great role. We have information mediaries taking place in Solution Exchange, which is quite unique. Many of our models for communication online, we don't have these intermediaries. These intermediaries are important both in terms of the processing and digesting of the information they do. They check quality, they check authenticity, but they also crystallize ideas from multiple inputs at the same time, and they bring them down into much sharper issues. They can also prod for more inputs if there's something missing. And ultimately, they produce a knowledge product, something that somebody, say like me, who doesn't have time to read the entire exchange, can get the gist of or the summary out of. And also, from a knowledge management perspective, these summaries last. They stay and can be kept. They can be printed in the case of Solution Exchange and distributed to people who don't have online access. They are translated by people in other communities and other communications communities into other languages and disseminated further. So this is one of these roles of communities of practice, and the FSN is a great model of that, actually. And the nice thing about it is it informs a large community of people. It doesn't just inform policymakers, it also involves people on the ground and people more directly involved in community rural development. And I think this is important because actually this is one sort of back-end way of informing the policymakers, whether they realize it or not. By participating in these large communities, they get input that they wouldn't get otherwise, because most of us don't have access to these people, especially not when it comes to face-to-face access. Okay. Knowledge sharing also. Solution Exchange, as I said, produces these digests at the end of each question and a report. And these are very vital because these last. You don't even have to be a member of Solution Exchange to see these. They're published and they're distributed. And the second area where information and communication ICTs are important in food security and nutrition is in the area of capacitating good decision making for complex issues. In my work in FAO, to be honest, food security and nutrition is probably the most complicated area I see. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a food security person. I just work to support these issues, but they bring in more people from more different technical areas than any of the other projects I've worked on. No heads barred, nothing else comes close. Agricultural production has maybe crop and irrigation people in it, soil people, 3 groups, maybe 4. People who work in livestock, also very small groups of people. But nutrition and food security look at food production, they look at medical issues, they look at health, they look at child nutrition, they look at weather patterns, they look at global forecasting for food supplies. It's quite amazing to me. And it's also a way information and communication technology can be used to point out shortcomings and problems. In countries, for example, maybe not India, but in other countries I've worked in, the countries are food secure. This comes back to the statistics issue. The countries are food secure, there's no question about it. But there are starving people. There are people who go hungry every day. But if you look at the statistics, it doesn't tell you that. And even if you break the statistics down into a more localized level, say by district or by panchayat or by village, you see numbers that indicate that there are areas that are short in terms of food, but it doesn't have much impact. One of the greatest ways to do it is to visualize that data. And new ICTs allow us to visualize data much more easily, and much more quickly, and much more cheaply. You don't have to be a great expert in GIS systems, for example, to visualize some very basic data. And then you can show people that you may know that you're a politician, your country or your district or your block or your village is food secure, but we can show you that this area or this section of the village or this group of people within your community are not food secure, and that your issues, your policies and your development work need to target them specifically, otherwise you're completely missing the mark.